thanks a lot for joining us. We've got kind of a really cool, interesting panel discussion today, all about Muslim female founders. And as you can tell, we're not at Makers Academy. We're in another stuffy design cool studio in Shoreditch. So big thanks to the guys at Ustwo for putting us up and also paying for pizza and filming and stuff like that. Really appreciate it. So I'm just going to give a very quick overview of what Muslamic Makers is and who we are. So my name is Murtaza and this is Arfa, and together we started Makers Muslamic Makers about 4 months ago. And it really just came from kind of a frustration of knowing that the tech startup scene has like really poor kind of ethnic representation, and there tends to be kind of like a lack of like a halal but cool kind of meetup space for people who are interested in tech, design, creativity, entrepreneurship, those kind of things. There's a lot of things like drinkabouts, but obviously like we kind of know that not everyone's going to be comfortable to go to those kind of events. So the kind of main aim is to just create kind of an awesome, cool space where people from a Muslim background can kind of come together, talk about stuff they're working on, potentially meet co-founders, co-workers, all that kind of stuff. So it's really just about showcasing the awesome work that Muslim techies are doing, and create a kind of cool network to create even more awesome stuff. And basically just help to kind of diversify the tech startup world, because if that happens, it's a win for everyone, right? So kind of the kind of how we do it. So we have like events geared around providing Muslims the chance to showcase work. So this is kind of exactly what this is all about. We also have a pretty cool Slack channel. Probably got about 120 people on there right now, talking about stuff from like JavaScript courses to halal burger joints, all that kind of stuff. We also reach out to kind of leading tech companies. So this is the kind of first event. Is this our fourth?
It's our
fourth event. And yeah, it's the first kind of one where we're being hosted by Ustwo. And you know, that's really beneficial because it gives us and you the opportunity to see some really cool industry leading companies and how they work. And we're also going to be looking at doing like workshops to learn and upskill. So I mentioned the Slack channel, so I'm going to kind of mention it again. Make sure you join us. We've got some pretty cool content on there. It's a really cool way to just ask people about like anything to do with marketing, development, anything you kind of want to know within the tech and design creative sphere. It's pretty handy. Also, like good restaurant choices. I'm not trying to steal Halal Gems kind of business here, but you know. So yeah, like I'm just going to introduce you to Yasser, who works at Ustwo, and he's going to give us like a very brief kind of introduction into who Ustwo and what they do. So Yasser.
Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? I'm Yasser. I'm the resident data scientist here at Ustwo. And just to give you, because I don't know how many people here know about Ustwo. Yes, you work here. Anyway, Ustwo is actually three things, but the main thing is Ustwo is a digital product studio. So we make beautiful apps for clients like Sky, like DeepMind, like Ford. We have, the second thing is Ustwo is a game studio. So we have a games team and that developed, maybe some of you know, a great game called Monument Valley. And the third thing is we have Ustwo Ventures. So that's more like our place where we try out new stuff, develop our own apps, our own games. You might know Wayfinder, you might know DICE. So we have some great stuff coming up there. And I really love that we are able to host such an event like this. We have Whitney in the back, part of our diversity initiative. And it's just great to have you people here. So that's it, hopefully. You get a bit better view of us too, and I'm going to give it back to Musa.
Yeah,
there you go.
Awesome. Big thanks again, and they're also providing pizzas for us, so that's pretty cool, right? So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Arfa, who's going to facilitate the discussion. So I'll pass over.
Welcome everyone. So to begin with, we're going to have Zohra do a little spiel on Halal Gems. So over to you.
Didn't know I was going first. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of how Halal Gems started and why. And it's really not a very techie story, but I just wanted to do that so that you get an idea of where I'm coming from and where Halal Gems is coming from. And the tech stuff, hopefully we can talk about when we have a nice long Q&A, because it's always nice to know what you guys want to know rather than me going on and on. So I'll just tell you my story. So Halal Gems started about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. It's been a really long 3 years. And it's because I read a book that changed my life. So I read a book by a food writer called Michael Pollan. Does anyone here have Netflix? Yeah, have you seen the show called Cooked? Okay, watch that show called Cooked. No one's seen it in the room. But Michael Pollan's a fantastic food writer, and he wrote this book called In Defense of Food. And I read this book 3 years ago, and I cannot for the life of me remember why I was reading this book. But it absolutely changed my life. It made me think about food and transparency and where our food comes from. And it sounds really odd to suddenly just start thinking about where your food comes from, but that's what happened. So Michael's got this fantastic thing in his book called the bread test. So we can do it just now. And it goes like this. How many ingredients can you think of that are in bread? So I'll start you off. Flour. Anything else? Salt. Yeast. Water.
Olive oil.
Okay, we'll have olive oil. Anything else? Milk, maybe milk. So we'll have like 5 or 6 ingredients maybe. And the bread test is you then go to your loaf of bread that's in your fridge or wherever you store it, and just count the number of ingredients. And on average, and exactly the same as it was on my Hovis loaf that I had in my fridge that day, it was 14 ingredients. And it's interesting because we all know there are preservatives in our food, but I just thought actually 3 times the number of ingredients that I can think of that would ever be in bread. That's really interesting. What is that? And suddenly started asking what was in that. And at the same time, do you remember the horse meat scandal? So the horse meat scandal, which changed exactly 0 laws in this country, happened around the same time. And there was, as part of that, people started DNA testing meat, and there was a school in Luton where children had been served halal chicken, which didn't only turn out to be not halal chicken, it turned out to be pork. And I thought, okay, there is something wrong in our food chain. I don't know where our food is coming from. It seems like nobody knows where their food is coming from. And basically I turned vegetarian for about 7 months, which was really hard. And that's where I kind of started thinking about things like food transparency and what halal actually means. So I started doing a bunch of research, a bit of religious stuff, a bit of technology stuff, a bit of food technology stuff, and saw things like in the Quran, God talks about halal and tayyib. He talks about wholesome every time he talks about halal in the sense of food. And I got to thinking, what does halal really mean? And so that started me on a big sort of massive survey thing. And I went and asked a whole bunch of people what halal means to them. And the thing that really stood out for me is the diversity in what the definition of halal is. So I had this fantastic experience at a festival 3 years ago where I asked a young man what halal means to him, and he kind of said, well, you know what, we shouldn't doubt our fellow Muslims. So if someone says to you that something is halal, it is absolutely wrong for you to doubt that and to go and try and verify something. Your Muslim brother has told you it's halal. And then 2 minutes later, talking to a young woman, saying, it is absolutely your duty to find out exactly where that food is coming from, because just because someone says it's halal doesn't mean that God is going to look at you any differently. You need to find out. And it's just people feel very, very passionately about these sorts of things. I thought that's really interesting. And the whole point for me, really, around food transparency and what halal means is 2 things. One is that you should, as a consumer, have the choice of what you want to eat, but you need to be informed enough of what it is that you're looking at. So, for example, I had a conversation with someone who said I would never eat meat from chickens that were pre-stunned before they were slaughtered. And so he said, fine, so he would never eat at Nando's. Nando's is extremely transparent. They have a whole thing on their website saying we pre-stun and these sorts of things. And so he'd never eat at Nando's. So I asked him where the last bit of chicken he ate was, and he said it was his local kebab shop. So I asked, did you ask them whether that was pre-stunned? And he said no. But 97% of halal chicken is actually pre-stunned. So chances are he had it pre-stunned, he just didn't know. So number one, the whole thing for me is about choice and making sure that people have enough choice, which is why we try and be as transparent as possible and try and get comments on what halal really means from restaurants. That's our whole thing. The second thing really is the vision. So to me, I'm hoping that, I don't know, it might take 30 or 40 years, but I really want halal to mean ethical, to mean wholesome, to mean that people in the food chain have been paid well, that animals have been treated well, that it's not about the last 3 minutes of its life, it's actually about the weeks beforehand that they live, and all those sorts of things. But that's a really, really, well, it might be a bit of a pie-in-the-sky dream, I don't know if it'll ever happen in my lifetime, but the point is I want Halal Gems to be part of that story. So that's really the story of how Halal Gems kind of came about. And the way that we do these things, it's really about, food is just pretty. You can post up a picture of food on Instagram, it's kind of what Instagram is there for, and you'll get a bunch of people interacting and engaging with you, it's fantastic. But really the whole point is to pepper that with education. So for us, it's about, here are the best places to go to in Toronto for dessert, here are the best places to go to in London for halal English breakfast, and this is what organic means. And here's always another place to go to for, I don't know, Brazilian food in Manchester or whatever that is. So in terms of technology, what we're trying to do is to make sure that we're cutting edge. I'm a bit of a geek, self-professed geek, which I'm hoping I'm in like good company here. But it just means that we didn't want branding or technology that was kind of substandard. So for example, with our magazine, we didn't just want a PDF that you can look at on your iPad. It's fully interactive. We have an engagement time of 13 minutes. People spend longer in our magazine than they do on news sites because you can play games in them. And that's the whole point. It should be that good. We've got an app coming out in a few weeks, and the reason it's been delayed is because we wanted to make sure it had an iWatch extension. And probably nobody has an iWatch except for me. But it doesn't matter because we wanted it to have absolutely the best. We were completely sick of having brands, kind of like what much as I was talking about in terms of events, brands that are kind of creating things that aren't really that good, but because it's for the Muslim market, it's okay. That is not okay. It should be the most fantastic. It should be the most advanced. It should be really pretty. And that's my story. There you go.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Nafisa.
Thank you. Hi, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nafisa and I'm the co-founder of Amalia. And there we go. So what we are in the short version is a fashion site for what the industry would term modest fashion. And what we essentially do is we curate the high street, so we find the best of looks from ASOS, Topshop, Boohoo, Missguided, all the retailers you know, and we kind of bring out the best. So I'm sure all the women here have been on ASOS trying to find a top that's not a crop top or a maxi skirt that's not got a thigh-high slit, and really thought, oh my gosh, when's my search going to be over? So that's what we're trying to do. We're kind of trying to make that journey a bit easier for you. I'm going to go on to next, onto why. So that's my sister over there, who's also my co-founder. You can find her sitting over there. What she would tell me to tell you is that she's not fat. She was pregnant in that photo. So now she's got a lovely little boy called Isa. So we co-founded Amalia, and honestly, when we started, we kind of had this, I guess, internal dilemma of, is this even a right thing to do? You know, it's fashion, it's Muslims, you get into a bit of this grey territory, is it right? But then the more Muslim people we started speaking to, we realised it was a genuine problem. You know, people were more concerned about what they were going to wear to their job interview and how they were going to look smart and modest rather than what they were actually going to be saying. And we thought, actually, this is a problem, and ultimately it comes down to if we can empower Muslim women in their identity and make them feel confident about their identity and show them that they can hold the beliefs and the values that they have and still be a person of impact in this world. So that's kind of what the core of our message is. So if we move over, so a couple of things we do is we take blogger looks and we kind of, when you see them on Instagram, you're like, oh my gosh, that maxi skirt doesn't have a slit, it's really nice, where did you buy it from? Here you go. Another thing we do is we kind of do edits based on if you have a graduation coming up, if you have a wedding coming up, job interview coming up. We kind of just want it to be a destination where you can find all the stuff you want without having to filter it like you would on ASOS. Lastly, we do trend edits as well. So one thing we realised was we are just like other women. We want to be fashionable, we want to be trend focused, we want to know what the latest looks are. And we felt that that wasn't quite out there, so we did it ourselves on Amalia. In terms of our timeline, so this time last year I quit my job on a whim. I'm not an impulsive person, but I was like, I just really want to solve this problem because I'd spoken to so many Muslim women and it was a genuine frustration. I'm sure many of you in the audience know exactly what I'm talking about. And it was kind of one of those things where I had no product, no team, no money, no experience, no real anything, but I just really wanted to make it work. And then I kind of built an MVP, which was so embarrassing, like I wouldn't even show it to you now. It was really, really basic, but it was our way of saying what's the minimum thing we can put out into the world and kind of show people what we're about and kind of test what we're doing. And then we got picked by the British Council as one of the 20 startups in the UK to go over to India for 2 weeks. And that was an amazing experience to just see how technology works in India, how the startup ecosystem works in India, and it kind of acted like an accelerator for us. We then came back in October, and in November we got onto an accelerator. So for anyone who doesn't know what an accelerator is, the easiest easiest way to describe it is it's like university for startups, but in a really short period of time. And rather than you paying them, they give you money, which is quite nice. So we finished that in, was it April? And Selena actually had her baby during the program, so that was all a bit crazy. So that photo you saw was us during the program. So I had this moment where I was a solo founder, which came with its own struggles and challenges, which was a bit crazy. And then in May, alhamdulillah, we raised a seed round, and we're now actually based here upstairs, and we're hiring for a full stack developer if there's anyone out there. So yeah, we're just kind of ready to grow our team, ready to grow our impact and move forward. So yeah, if there's anyone that wants to join our team or wants to just have a chat, do let us know. We're open to having a chat, and that is us in a nutshell.
Awesome. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty really. I'll start with you, Zohra. So you obviously started off with the interactive magazine, which was PDF format. Now you are...
Not PDF.
Oh,
Definitely not PDF.
Okay, my bad. So actually tell me more about the technology behind the magazine then. Let's maybe start with that.
Choosing the technology behind the magazine?
Yeah.
So we looked at several different options. You can create an app in lots of different ways. We actually started off just doing iPad. And then we thought, oh, okay, some people use Androids.
Android all the way.
Users, but okay. So we thought, okay, now actually, market-wise, it makes a lot of sense. So we used a platform that we could then create something which basically use a whole bunch of different types of plugins and a little bit of HTML, and you can convert something into both Android and for iPhone and iOS. And for iOS. And we just did the tablet versions because really we were thinking in our heads, magazine, tablet, that's how it looks good. But once we launched it, on launch day, we had so in terms of the number of people who downloaded it, we had 14 times more people contact us to say, I can't download it on my phone. So we thought, well, that's ridiculous demand, we kind of have to do it for the phone. So we did it for the phone, it took us about 2 weeks to do it for that, and then we just used exactly the same technology for that.
Awesome. And now obviously you are in the process of actually launching an app. What was your, process behind that? Obviously, my understanding is you're non-technical. So obviously I'm assuming you had to either hire or outsource. What's the journey been like through that process?
So I'm like fake technical basically, which I think you have to be, right? When you're a founder, I think you have to kind of roughly pretend to know what you're talking about. With most things, but definitely with technology, you have to kind of pretend to know. So I did half a computer science degree, so I do have a little bit of, like a tiny bit of insight, not that I remember it much. But in terms of hiring, making that decision, so for me, it was, I think when I was ready to hire my first employee, it was about, who is that employee? So I definitely can't continue doing all of this stuff myself. But who is it? Is it going to be someone who's technical? Is it sales? Is it marketing? What kind of area do I want to basically let go of and give somebody else the responsibility for? And I think there's a phrase that goes something like, you hire when it hurts, something like that. And the marketing was driving me nuts. I knew what I was doing, but I just didn't have the time for it. And so I hired for that instead, which meant that actually outsourcing was a good thing to do. So I've had a lot of outsourcing issues, I think. It would take too long to even explain them all here, but just to start off with, I used this platform called Elance. Has anyone heard of Elance before? You can just hire a freelancer. It was a disaster at first, but I hit upon this one awesome Vietnamese team, and they are just absolutely lovely. So 3 years on, they still do all of my tech stuff. They maintain the website, they do all of anything that we need basically. So our site's built in a bit of WordPress, a bit of Ruby on Rails, and they maintain all of that. It's just that I think you have to understand a little bit about it because, for example, they'll say, oh, this isn't possible, and I'll say, yeah, but maybe it is if you try it this way. And you just need to be able to kind of push them in that way sometimes. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, that will take 100 hours. And I'm like, dude, if I could do that in 10 hours, you can do it in 5 or something like that. And so that's, I think, important. But we also now have a team who are developing our app who are in Pakistan. And those guys were on a recommendation. So someone who's already built an app who loved the team, and we kind of went a bit blind, but I'm really happy we did because they're awesome.
That's really, really interesting. Okay, Nafisa, so you obviously learnt to code at Founders and Coders. Tell me what your experience was like when you started to learn to code.
So it was quite demoralising for me. So if anyone's so what Founders and Coders is it's a 16-week bootcamp, kind of like Makers Academy, if I'm allowed to say that. And I think their stack is different. And what you do is for 8 weeks you full-time code, and then for the next 8 weeks you work on real-world projects. And for me, I'd just come out of university when I did that, and you literally get put into the deep end. So from knowing nothing to suddenly you're working with back-end surveys. We did a project for The Guardian. It was insane. But what it did give me, it gave me that articulation point, I guess, of being able to talk to a developer and say, this is what we want and this is how I want it. And actually up until now, so we launched in January, and up until now we haven't had a developer on board, and we've got to the point where it hurts. So we're hiring. And one thing I would say is a lot of people, when they're starting up or they're starting their idea, get really hung up over the fact that they don't have a developer or they're not technical and things like that. But in hindsight, I built our MVP myself through coding, but in hindsight we didn't need to write a single line of code to test what we wanted to do. And most people don't need to. There's a lot of ready-made sites out there that you can build something on, or there's things you can do to be able to test the sort of big picture of what you're trying to get across without having to write any code. And that's something we've learned and we still implement now. Is there a way to do what we want to do without writing a single line of code? I think sometimes it's an ego thing. You want to feel like you're a proper company and you need to code and all these things, but in my experience, you just don't need to.
Awesome. Okay, so you obviously mentioned you joined an accelerator, which was Ignite. Why Ignite? Because obviously there are a lot of accelerators out there. And I guess what did you gain from being part of an accelerator?
So with Ignite, they are an angel-backed accelerator. I met with the founders who sort of started the accelerator, and they just came across really genuine, and they seemed like they really cared about their founders. I spoke to their alumni as well, and they were still in contact with alumni who'd been out of the accelerator 2 years ago. So I knew that if I went through there, I'd still be getting the support system, which we do. And what was it like?
Yeah.
Again, really intense, demoralising at points as well. So we went into it with a pregnant co-founder, so at the interview stage, she didn't come to the interview because we want to obviously hide the bump. And then when we got the acceptance offer, I was just like, I just want to let you know, so my co-founder's pregnant, she's due on the program, but it's totally okay, we've got it covered, don't worry about it. And I kind of didn't even let him say anything about it. So that was a big challenge, because you're going from being two co-founders, accelerators are beyond intense, and then suddenly you lose your co-founder, and for me, my sister as well. So that was amazing, but very, very mentally challenging, but we do it again.
I want to build on the fact that you hid your sister from the initial interview stage, because obviously there's certain assumptions at play that by bringing in a pregnant co-founder, there might be people saying, oh, but they're not going to be committed, etc. What was your thinking behind actually doing that?
Yeah, for me it was like they're going to take one look at her and be like, oh, because they were very sort of, we want to make sure you're committed, you need to be committed, and I thought, okay, I can't bring a pregnant lady to the interview because biologically she's not going to be committed to the rest of the program. But I knew we'd be able to manage it, so I just wanted to be able to, I guess, not give them any biases, and then get chosen and then tell them after.
Yeah, I think that was well played, definitely. Okay, so we're going to talk about kind of funding and money. Zohra, did you get funding, or have you just bootstrapped your whole business and Halal Gems yourself?
I bootstrapped. We basically, there's another, I'm just going to quote stuff at you guys now, but there's this other thing that goes, when you're a startup, you get money from friends, fools, and family, and fools is yourself. So I basically spent everything I had, then I spent everything that I could find that I didn't know I had, and then I borrowed money from basically anyone who would give it to me. So my parents, my brother, my sister, my friends, like whoever would give me money basically. And that was, at the beginning, at the beginning I guess I was spending my own money, so I probably spent it a lot more liberally than I should. But the first time I borrowed money from someone, it was a really big thing for me in my mind, because it was just this, I just felt this huge weight of this is somebody else's money that I'm looking after. And the thing is, obviously your friends and family are going to believe in you. If I'm barking mad and this thing is completely ridiculous and it's a stupid thing to do, they probably still give me money, which is terrible, because you need someone to tell you, actually you're just being stupid, this is not the way you should be doing things. And so what I did is I made sure that when I got a little bit of money, I also got some really, really good advice. So I went out and on purpose went to find people who would think that something was ridiculous. And sometimes it was just a matter of feedback. And I really, really appreciate that feedback. Just to give you just a really small example. So before I even borrowed money, like Rufal, who sat at the back there, the way I met Rufal is, I was like, oh, this guy's interesting online, I should go meet him. And I went and met him, and I showed him the first version of the Halal Gems website. And he looked at it, and he was like, yeah, that's not very good, is it? and I thought, ouch. And then I thought, finally, someone's giving me some feedback that I can actually do something with. And he was right, the design was awful. Do you remember flaming text?
Oh no. No.
Yeah, I used flaming text to do our logo, and obviously Rufal saw right through that. And it was really funny because he wasn't the only person to say that, but just that thing of having good advice sometimes I think was really important. So yeah, we bootstrapped, and I was just telling Celine now, in June, so last month, we, for the first time, so it's been 2.5 years, and we made a profit last month. And that was like a real nice this is basically the biggest celebration we've had, because when I realized that we'd made a profit, I was very sleepily looking at the screen, checking my bank account to make sure we didn't go bankrupt the next day. And it's seriously, because 4 months ago we had, so I'm being extremely open, but we had £5.17 in our bank account. And I remember looking at that number in January and taking a screenshot of it and thinking, this is a moment for me right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how the hell I'm going to pay the bills next month, but this is a moment. And in June, we made that profit, and I saw that, and I went, oh look, we made a profit, and oh, now I can go to bed. And that was it, and it just, like, my celebration was I went to bed. That was it. So that's how we funded it.
Awesome. On the process about profit, actually, what is your revenue model?
That's a really good question, because most people are like, oh, that sounds really fantastic. It's a really nice idealistic thing to do, but how do you make money from it? And I really didn't answer that question for about a year and a half. So for about a year and a half, I had no flipping clue how we'd make money at all. It was just, I'm doing this, and that's it. And I thought, then there's something in there, there's a market in there, I don't know what it is. We looked at things like being in the Middle East. There were lots of things, and there were actually, in the first year, I had 3 different people come in with investment offers, but all 3 of them had agendas and they just didn't want to go there. And so about a year and a half in, we started doing these restaurant memberships, where we said, you know what, if you're a good enough restaurant to be on our restaurant finder, then if you pay us, we can promote you a little bit more. So it's kind of like a premium kind of listing type thing. And then actually, the real place, our real kind of profit, and this is that whole thing of you just keep experimenting till something happens, is in January, when we had that £5.17 moment, it was like, okay, well, what skills do we have, and who do we know, and how can we make this work? And it was, I think what we do quite well is marketing. We know how to do that sort of thing. What I know now is the restaurant industry, and I know a whole bunch of restaurant managers and people who own them and people who run them. So I thought, hang on a second, there are lots of restaurant managers and restaurants that are really, really good, but their Facebook and their Instagram is awful. Seriously, they don't even update their opening hours. There are websites there without phone numbers for a restaurant. And so what I did was I went to a few of those kind of people I already knew and just said, look, how about you pay us? We'll take care of all your online stuff. We'll take care of your website, your Google+, your Instagram, your whatever. And basically, I looked quite strategically for people who would pay us more but have like really awesome brands to work with. And that's how we made a profit. So right now we have, the great thing about that is it's monthly recurring. So you just know that once you have a client, you have that client for a long, long time, which is great. So that's currently how we make money.
Awesome. Okay, Nafisa, so obviously I know you can't disclose you've been raising money, etc. What's that process been like? How from start to finish, if you can obviously go into that.
I think you can think the word I'm going to use, demoralizing. So raising money is interesting. So it's weird. So there's different ways to raise money. You can raise it from a VC, who is essentially a venture fund, and they are people that are managing other people's money. And then you can raise it from angel investors, where it's their own money that they're putting in. So we raised money from angel investors, and it's an interesting experience with angel investors, because essentially what you'll always hear is angel investors are investing in you rather than the business. So because they know that what you're doing now could easily change. For example, Zohra, they found a new revenue model, their business angle kind of changed and things like that. So with raising money, it's a lot about the people you know and the networks you know. But I feel like a lot of people say that thinking people are just born with networks. We didn't have a rich network of people. We had to really go out and build that and work that, and I think everyone can do that. So, you know, this time last year, we knew literally no one. If we tried to raise money, we probably would just raise from like our mum. But now we've been able to build up that network, and for us, where we are now is really down to the people we've met, and off the raising money side of things. We got a lot of stuff for free as well to keep us going. So even Selena's MacBook, that's free from my ex-manager. We've got so many things, laptops, office space, credits, events. So tickets that normally cost like £300 to event, we got for free. And you realise how much you can get when you start asking, and when you just start building networks and actually just being a genuine person to people. So yeah, raising money is interesting. I don't know what more to say. Everyone has a different journey.
I guess I kind of want to maybe have a discussion between you both. So obviously you've bootstrapped, pros and cons.
Well, we're actually thinking about raising money in the next 12 months, so I don't know. We haven't quite decided, but I think for us, we're trying to grow, and we've grown really well, I think, so far. But we're kind of looking at that sort of extra lift and thinking about whether at some point at the end of the year we might want to try and do that. In terms of, I don't know, I've not really thought about pros and cons contrasting, I suppose. In terms of cons, you spend everything you have, you don't have anything. So basically, at the end of the day, sometimes I do think to myself, what's worst case scenario here? I lose a ton of money, like if we went bust at some point, it would be really sad, but at the end of the day, you can just kind of like get a job and get on with it, really. I probably don't have like a great pension or whatever, but I'm not too worried about it. Maybe I should be, I don't know.
So now that we're actually raised, I almost feel like we've been playing all this time, because now you have real accountability to investors, you have a board, and you have all these scary things that you now have to do. But with that accountability, I feel like it does keep pressure on you. So, you know, every month you need to now have board meetings with your investors, with your team, whereas before you could, there's two sides, before you could kind of do what you want. And it depends what you're setting up your business for. Some people are setting up their business to be able to always do whatever they want, get up whenever they want, run the sort of business they want, have the revenue that they want. And then there's other businesses where you are going to need to take money, and you need to end up taking money from people or from VCs, and sometimes they're going to push you to do things that you might not have wanted to do. So I think it comes from, in terms of pros and cons, what sort of business you want to build. That, for example, with Ustwo, they're very open about we never want to take investment, because they always wanted to have full control of what projects they were working on and where they were spending their time. But then internal teams that have come out of Ustwo, or internal companies, so for example Dice, which is a music ticketing app, they went on to raise millions from VCs and venture funds and angels and things like that, because the direction of where they were taking their company was very different to where Ustwo were taking it. Ustwo was a passion project between two founders, and it just happened to grow to 300 employees. And they were very clear on what they wanted as a company. So I think part of it goes back to, what do you want? Do you want to be accountable to a board of investors, or do you want to be accountable to yourself?
On that point, vision. What's the vision? What's the vision for both of you? Your businesses and yourself, I guess.
So for us, it's to be able to be the go-to destination for Muslim women across fashion and lifestyle. And I touched upon being empowered by your own identity. For us, it's about sending out a message to Muslim women that you can be who you are, you can hold your beliefs, and be a person in this world that creates impact. And for us, that's the core of what Amalia is. It's about representation. It's about representing Muslim women and saying, actually, it's okay to be who you are. You know, we go on ASOS, and every time you see that white, skinny model in a crop top, in a blazer, the message it sends out to you is, you're not cool, or you don't belong here, or what you're wearing just doesn't fit in. So for us, a lot of it is about, at the core of it, empowering people with their identity.
I think for us, I've sort of already talked about the vision, but really it's about changing the way that we eat. I think that's what we want to do. We want to change the definition of what halal is. And part of what we do on the way to kind of making that happen is, hopefully, I want us to be the sort of go-to place for new halal restaurants, the best places to go to, the trendiest places to go to. Obviously, apart from Roger's Slack group, which maybe I should just join. I think that's really what we wanted to do. And in terms of where I think one of the things we're saying is where you see yourself. I was just talking with the team a little bit earlier, and I think ideally what I would like to do, it's funny because with Halal Gems I thought I'm going to spend a year on this, and then at about a year I was like, oh no, I think I need another year, and then I don't even know when 2 years happened because I'm just sort of kept going. But I think ideally it's not something I really want to let go of. It's something that I feel really strongly about, and so the vision for me is I would love to be in a team where everybody is smarter than I am and awesome at what they do, and I can just help them do their thing well, and that's it.
Awesome. So obviously, me and Montessa have been running Muslamic Makers for 4 months. The first couple of events have been quite male-heavy. We had male speakers, so we really wanted to kind of bring out the Muslim women talent. But it was actually very difficult. Very, very difficult. I asked people with the biggest networks I know, and I asked, and apart from you two, you know, which is awesome because you guys are pioneering, it was actually a struggle. There's obviously a women in tech problem, but actually trying to find Muslim women in tech who have obviously started businesses and tech businesses specifically, because I'm being even more niche, it was tricky. I guess, one, how do you feel about being a Muslim woman tech entrepreneur? B, what advice would you give to try and get more Muslim women into kind of the tech scene?
So being a Muslim woman tech entrepreneur, so many boxes to tick. So actually when I started this journey, in particular when I started Accelerator, I remember the first day we had to get up and kind of pitch 30 seconds what we were doing. And what I said to him, I said, so normally I use the term modest, but I'm going to actually use the word Muslim because I figured if any of you in this room don't like Muslims, you're going to spend 3 months with us, so we have 3 months to convince you otherwise. And I think starting this journey, I was always thinking, how are people going to view us as Muslims, as a Muslim-facing business? And I can't actually say we've had a bad experience. The London tech community have been incredibly welcoming, incredibly amazing, and so I can't say I've had a negative experience yet. In terms of, do you say what we can do to get more?
Yeah.
I think it's stuff like this. Like I say, where we are now is down to the people we surrounded ourselves with and our networks. And it's about the more networks we have, the more sort of places we have to be able to meet, collaborate, meet like-minded people, and meet in an environment that we feel okay in. I haven't quite found the answer yet, to be honest, because I constantly look around and I'm always so aware that I'm like the only ethnic minority on the panel, or I walk into an event and there's only 2 other ethnic minorities, and you're always like, hold on, where are all these people? And I think it's so many different things that there's no really one root cause, I guess.
I think there is there clearly is a problem just in general. I was speaking at ArabNet, which is a tech conference in Riyadh in December, and so it was my first time in Saudi Arabia, and it was a bit crazy actually. But there were something like 80 speakers, and about 6 of them were women. So there really is a problem just in general. But I guess people are trying to kind of address that. I think in the sort of general community, so when I talk to my non-Muslim friends or my just friends in tech or whatever, there doesn't seem to be that much of a huge thing. Clearly there is a lack of women in tech, but it doesn't seem to be a real kind of community trying to push people out, as far as I can see. Within the Muslim community, I think every woman, probably every startup founder, has some sort of story where some man is, I think my go-to story is that I was talking to a guy once for about 45 minutes. It was a long conversation about halal and the world and all kinds of stuff. And he said, yeah, you know, this Halal Gems thing, it's really fantastic. 45 minutes later, he goes, great, so can I speak to the brother who's in charge? And I was like, I just didn't really know what to say to him. So I kind of, and the thing is, I regret what I said actually. So what I said to him is, if you want a brother to call you, I can arrange that. And then afterwards I thought that was a stupid thing to say. I would have been like, I had lots of words. But anyway, I think everyone has a story that goes something like that, where some really annoying, like Muslim brother or whatever, tries to, just, it makes assumptions, I suppose. And I think the big thing is, if you are a Muslim brother, please don't make assumptions, because it's really annoying. And plus, next time you might get some real words back, which is not going to be nice. But the other thing is, in terms of trying to encourage people to get into tech, whether it's women or men, or like a little secret at Halal Gems, I've never said no to anyone wanting an internship or work experience or anything like that. We've actually never said no. And some of them have been paid if it's work experience for students like who are 15, we don't. But otherwise, I think it's really important that we kind of lift each other. And your formative work experiences, I think, are really, really important. So the kind of summer internship you have when you're 20 is, I think, really, really important. And whether they're men or women coming into the organization to do those sorts of things, I think it's really important for the men to have a female founder, and so my other colleague who works full-time on Halal Gems is also female, and she manages people too, and so it's basically a bunch of women managing stuff, which is great. And so I think that idea of just encouraging people to try and volunteer or intern at companies is a really good thing.
Cool. I read your blog, Nafisa, where you said that your dad used to call your startup stupid. I kind of want to, go into both of you in terms of parental expectations. Obviously, Muslims, Asian people, you have a lot of, go do the sciences, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, but here we are all trying to be creatives and in tech. How did you manage all of that?
So I studied natural sciences, so I ticked one box, which was studying science, engineering or medicine, but he would have rather it be medicine. And then he saw me doing Amalia as a phase, so he kept saying, oh, this is going to be a really good experience for when you go to the big companies. I was just like, no, Dad, this is now my job, this is what I'm doing. And he just totally didn't get it, but he was just thinking, oh, it's just a little phase. And then slowly I guess he started seeing the conviction in myself, and you kind of come round to it. And my dad is so traditional, so he's a chemical engineer, he studied in IIT in India, he is from a village, traditional in every single sense, right? So what I was doing was just and a fashion company, let's not even go there. So the saviour was like, oh no, but there's tech and coding, that's kind of like STEM subjects and stuff like that. That was kind of the saving grace. But it just got to a point where ultimately your parents want to see you happy, they want to see you flourish, they want to see you succeed. And when he started realising that, oh, okay, she's actually taking it seriously and she's actually going somewhere, he became my biggest cheerleader. I mean, we pitched, I think it was March last year, and he turned up to my pitch, he came to support me, and he was the only dad that came. So eventually he kind of came around and started seeing it as an actual business rather than this kind of little phase that I was going to do until I went and joined IBM or EY or a big company like he wanted. So yeah, he's come around to it, and he actually wants to start his own business now, so it's obviously worked.
That's pretty cool. So for me, I guess I'm really, really lucky. My dad is an entrepreneur, and he raised my family and built our house on it. And so on his own ideas and his own merit and his own blood, sweat and tears. And so as soon as I said so at the time that I was starting Halal Gems, what I did was I said, I'm going to finish this contract. I was doing a strategy contract for a non-profit, and I said, I'm going to finish this contract, and then I'm going to go to San Francisco for 3 months, because I just want to geek out there a little bit, and maybe I'm Californian inside and I'm having a midlife crisis, I don't know. I'm going to go to California for 3 months, and I'll see you in 3 months, and then I'm going to do Halal Gems full time. And at that point, my parents were more concerned about the California thing than the Halal Gems thing. So I kind of got away with that for a little while. But they have been, my mum probably less so, because she kind of just watches and goes, okay. But my dad has been extremely supportive. So right from the beginning, he was like, whatever you need, what do you need me to do? And he's really sweet. He's quite funny. He kind of goes to the mosque and tells people, you should review a restaurant on Halal Gems. Here's a card, and he'll give people things, and it's quite sweet because he's trying to help and be useful. But I think he gets it because he's an entrepreneur, because he's been there before. And I think I've had a bit of a weird sort of career. There is a coherent story to it, but I think my parents have kind of got used to, my entire family's got used to this idea that I just come up with random crazy stuff. So just before I decided to do the California thing, I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my brother and my mum and saying, I think maybe I want to be an architect. And they just looked at each other and just went, is she serious? And that's just kind of how stuff happens in my house now, I think. I just come up with something and make it happen. This is definitely, though, Halal Gems is the thing I've stuck at the longest, which is probably a good sign, I think.
Okay, 2-3 more questions before we open it up to the floor. Biggest achievement and biggest failure that you bounced back from?
You first.
God. I think biggest failure, I'm going to do two big failures, because two quick ones. Biggest failure, £5.17. I just thought, oh my god, £5.17, seriously. But other biggest failure, I suppose, is at some point during the magazine time, I had to, so our first issue of the magazine, I was doing some of the tech bits myself, and there was this thing I just couldn't do. It was just so annoying. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was one of those things where, like, your hair is this way, and you've had so much caffeine you can't sit still anymore, but you still don't know what you're doing. And I remember kind of not being able to do this and realizing that because I couldn't do this thing tonight, our magazine was going to be delayed another 3 days, because the thing I had to do, there was something else and whatever. So it was going to be a 3-day delay, and we had been advertising all over the shop that it would be out on this particular day. And because I'm an idiot, we couldn't get this magazine out. The entire team of writers and designers, all depending on this one thing that I couldn't do. And I remember having a little bit of a kind of a moment and ending up on the floor, and then just kind of like letting it all out, and then getting back up and going back to my computer and fixing it, and it took about 7 minutes. And so I guess it was a bit of a failure in one sense, but kind of got through it in the next, I guess. In terms of achievements, I think I try to celebrate the little achievements as we have them. So when we get to milestones, so we got to like 10,000 Instagram followers last month, just before Ramadan. So it was like, it's nice to kind of be like, oh, actually, you know, this is happening and that's happening. Those little things are really nice achievements. But was your question best achievement? Best moment ever, I think, for me, was during this entire time was when, after I hired our first full-time employee, which was, I've hired people before in my kind of other life, but hiring someone for your own company is a whole nother thing, and it's always going to be a risk, and it's always I don't know, I was up all night thinking about it. But when I actually hired our first employee and then got to know her a little bit and realized that actually she's so much more kick-ass than I thought, that was just amazing. Because to think that you can have something that you love so much and care about so much, and that somebody else really, really gets it and is actually really, really good at what they do, for me that was like, if you can attract talent like that, you probably got something pretty good. So that was my highlight.
On the failure side, I think it's a mixture of, we haven't had a massive failure and we're also quite laid back. So we've messed up loads on the way. So for example, there was a time where our website was totally down for 3 days. And the way I kind of consoled myself, I was like, one day I'm going to look back and be like, remember when our biggest problem was that our service weren't big enough? So I kind of just took it in, and that's kind of how we take our knocks, because there's only so much you can keep dwelling on what's going wrong now. You just got to keep moving forward. So I can't really say, there's been loads of moments where we're just like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? But yeah, I can't really pinpoint a specific thing. And in terms of biggest achievement, I think actually today I was putting together our job description and I was putting it live on our site, and I kind of sat back and I was like, and I'm putting together that timeline for the slides, and I was like, hold on, this time last year we were nothing, you know, we literally had nothing but just hustle and passion and just wanted to make this work. And it was just being able to reflect that now we're actually hiring our first employee and we've got offices, and it's all kind of starting to actually feel real. So today I would say was an achievement for us in that we're actually putting ourselves out there and saying, hey, who wants to join our team? And it's the first time we're able to actually do that. So yeah.
Okay, so last question before I open it to the floor. Do you have like a specific morning routine or something that you kind of always have to do, like a morning ritual or whatever? Because sometimes entrepreneurs tend to have things they do.
You should go first.
So I'm so not a morning person. I have no rituals in the morning. I'm not a morning person, so I guess for most of us it'll be praying, but other than that, any standard ritual is just about getting out of bed and getting myself together. But something that I do to kind of keep me going, mind, body and soul and all of that, is a fitness regime. And I've always found there's been a correlation between how much time I've spent in the gym and how much time I've spent working out with my mental resilience. And ultimately this whole journey is a game of resilience and how much you can take mentally. Because the tech, the people, hiring, all of that can sort itself out. But if you're mentally not strong, then it's all going to really be a hard journey. So that's kind of a ritual, but not a morning one.
So the gym thing is a real thing. I think the first thing I did when I decided I was going to go full-time on Halal Gems is the first thing I need to do is I need more energy. The only way you can do that is I need to join the gym. I just need to get fitter. So I do have a morning routine. I'm exactly the opposite. I'm like a crazy morning person. I love my morning. So I'm up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I know, and I'm the only person that's up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I will do things like I'll be the first person at the gym waiting for it to open, just kind of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But my morning routine, I'll do that. I'll have a coffee about half an hour before, like a black coffee. I don't know why. A black coffee before I'll go to the gym, and just to give myself some thinking time. I write during that time while I'm getting ready and that sort of thing, because I think it's nice somewhere to just. I have this like super secret blog, which is completely not attributed to me, where I just write anything that I want to and put it out into the universe, and just nobody knows it's me, so it's fine. So I have that. I write, and then I'll go to the gym. After gym, I'll have my breakfast, which will always be the same thing. It will always be 3 to 5 eggs, depending on how much vegetable I have. That's about it, and then I get on with my day. And that's my morning routine.
Great, thank you. Okay, so time to, I guess, open it up to the floor before the pizza arrives. Questions? Hands up, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, and you mentioned that beginning, and especially to Zohra, there were a couple of investors that you didn't really share the same outcome, same vision. What I wanted to ask was, especially with the pressure of finding an investment, how did you quickly suss out those investors in such a small time without actually knowing them, without actually not knowing them for quite a long while?
I think with the ones that I came across at the beginning, it was almost quite easy to see. So at the beginning of Halal Gems, there was a bit of hype because it was like, ooh, there's this new thing. And particularly to 2 out of the 3 that I'm thinking of, they kind of came along and said, this is going to be the next big thing, I want in. And I thought, that's interesting. And I explained the ethos, and they were like, yeah. But whatever. But this is going to be the next big thing, so I want in. And so straight away, it was like, well, if you don't even understand the ethos, if you can't even talk to me about it, you don't have to. You can be all about the money, that's fine. But if you can't even talk to me about it, I don't know if we're going to get on very well. So those were the kind of the first 2. And the third one, I basically just said no because I just thought, actually, it's not the right time for it. And they were based abroad, and they were looking at trying to move things into a country I didn't want to move into yet. I think strategically just didn't make sense, and so that was that. I think you've got to get a feel for it quite quickly, though, because it was like you said, is you meet the people, and then you realize that actually they're interested in you or they care about something, and that you really do. I think you need that human connection, if I'm right, before you actually take money from. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I've had instances where you just meet the person and you totally know they're not right for you, and it will be the way they speak about the business, the way they've interacted with other people, or just their vision, their experience. So we had one guy who really loved what we were doing, similar to what you're saying, but his vision was to open loads of bricks and mortar shops, and our vision was totally not that. So we just it became quite clashing. And we just understood that going forward, it just wouldn't be a mutually beneficial partnership. And I think one thing you need to look out for with investors is you don't want them to feel like they're managing you. They need to be able to respect you as a founder, that ultimately you know what is best for your company. And again, you'll be able to see that, you want someone who challenges how you think and how you're trying to found your company, but at the same time says, okay, you know what, it's down to you, it is your company. And I think you can see that pretty quickly after a few conversations.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Right, so,
Sorry, I'm
Got it.
yeah, actually, first one's for Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah. To kind of maybe ask the audience, I'm just curious, because you're saying that it's really hard for you to find female entrepreneurs. So I'm just curious how many either aspiring or actually established Muslim female entrepreneurs that might be actually inspired. And the second question I have is sort of like every entrepreneur, when you kind of hit against a rock or a wall, you must kind of go through these sort of moments of self-doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Am I completely mad? You kind of question if you can actually go, get through the next stage and get to the next day. And I was curious to see how you kind of get over that kind of maybe some of the mountains of self-doubt, sort of keep believing in yourself. What are the things that can help you get through?
Okay, so in terms of female Muslim entrepreneurs, I'd say there's actually quite a few. There's, I don't know if you know about I Eat Foods. There's a lot of Muslim women entrepreneurs that are doing kind of product-y based things. By product, I don't mean tech product. I mean, let that be physical things, hijabs, makeup, food, those kind of things. But I think tech is a very specific kind of that niche where you're kind of really going down kind of an alleyway. But I think as we kind of go on, hopefully more and more kind of Muslim females will kind of aspire towards the tech side of things.
On that, when you're down, so what I've learned to do now, and that feeling I have like every other month, if not every month, Selena will know. And what I do, so you feel this feeling of like, what am I even doing? Is this even real? Can I even do it? Why do I think I can do it? And I let myself wallow in the feeling, so I give myself like 2 days to just lie in bed, watch movies, do whatever I want, no work. Because I think the more you fight that feeling, the more you're just going to spiral down into it, and that's something that I've learned the hard way. Because otherwise you go like quite a few months not being able to kind of snap out of it. So I'll say to myself, right, you can have 2 days to just wallow in the feeling, and then you just got to get back up. And I found a lot of the times the root of why you're feeling like that, you can get to that root from speaking to someone. So I'll speak to a friend or an advisor or another founder, and I'll say, look, I feel really crap, and I might not know why, but then they'll start asking me why, or they'll start asking me, why do you feel like that? And normally you find the root of why you're feeling like that, and it's normally down to you just don't think you're good enough, but you are, you can do it.
That feeling is like really, really familiar, and I think part of what I do is remember that most people don't really know what they're doing, so maybe that's comforting. I don't know. I think that's what you learn really when you grow up. You suddenly think, oh, actually the grown-ups have no flipping clue what they're doing, and now I am one. So that's basically kind of how the world works. But for me, partly I think it's about building up that resilience so you kind of prevent it. So one of the things I do also in my morning routine, have you ever heard of cold shower therapy?
Oh no,
I do cold shower therapy, and it's really, it's really good. It hurts, but it's really, really good. And so I found that doing things like that, like cold shower therapy, and making sure that you can kind of build up, because seriously, if you have freezing cold water coming down over your head, and you can get to a state where you can breathe in a calm way with freezing cold water on your head, where all your instincts are telling you to breathe like crazy. If you can do that every single day in the morning, you feel really awesome, basically. You feel like you can do anything. So I find like doing that resilience thing before any of those sorts of feelings come up is a really good thing to do. But again, when that does happen, because it does happen, however much cold shower therapy you do, it does happen. And it really is, for me, it is about trying to get to the bottom of what that is about. So sometimes, I remember the last time I had that, it was because someone stole our website. Someone in America stole our website to the extent where it had my home address on their about page. Really annoying. I couldn't sleep. I think it was like 3 or 4 days. I was just up in the night and like somebody stole something from me, and I just feel awful, and this is just bad, and I can't do anything, and all sorts of things. And I think sometimes it's about discomfort. So once when someone said you should throw your design in the bin and start again, it was actually, and this was a couple of designs ago, it was actually because I wasn't comfortable with the design either, and she had just said it in a very rude way, but actually I was uncomfortable with that. And so once you realize what it is that's bothering you so much about what somebody said, that's quite good. But when you're just doubting yourself, which happens, I find the best thing to do is to basically take a little bit of time out, for sure, but to just kind of call someone who will reassure you. So for me, that's I did a master's a few years ago, and sometimes I get together with those people specifically because to remind yourself that there are other people just as crazy as you are who are doing these sorts of things, or getting together with other founders where you can just kind of be like, hey, so this feels really crazy, and they understand that feeling. It's quite nice. And the other thing is friends. So it's really nice to be able to just call a friend or someone you know and say, this is really crappy, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I think this is dumb, and I don't know how I'm going to make finances, and nobody cares about this, and it's never going to make money, and we should just all die. And then just see what they say. And more often than not, 20 minutes later, you're a little bit better than before.
Sweet. Pass the mic around.
This is a question to each of the panel on an individual basis. We're talking about identities. So we have the identity of being a Muslim, being a woman, and then you've got your product you're trying to sell. So what's more important to you? That you're successful because you're a Muslim, or you're a woman, because of the product?
It's interesting that you mentioned the Muslim identity thing. I just remembered one thing that I do when I'm feeling down is I listen to music. And I remember telling someone that before, and them saying, oh my God, that means you're not Muslim. And I thought, oh God, that's not good. And that's what I do. But I think in terms of identity, for me, in terms of being successful, it's nothing to do with being a Muslim or a woman or anything like that. I want to change the way we eat. And actually, if I'm not the best person to do that, then somebody else should do it. And I think if I end up hiring someone who's not Muslim, who is male, or whatever, I think that's absolutely fine, as long as the vision is achieved, as long as we get to where we want to get to. So for me, it's always about that need. What is it that we're trying to do? What is it that we're trying to change? And what's the best way of doing that? In terms of an identity, though, it's quite cool being on this panel, because it's quite a cool panel. But in general, I don't want to be a great female entrepreneur. I want to be a kick-ass entrepreneur that happens to be a woman. So it's not something that I kind of aspire to, these are the flags I'm going to carry at all. I just want to be good at what I do, like we all do. I think that's about it.
I think that sums it up. Like, we're here to solve a problem and make Muslim women's lives easier. And if that also means we're going to be recognised as female founders, entrepreneurs, ethnic minority Muslims and all of that, so be it. But at the core of it is, can we solve a problem and can we make an impact on Muslim women?
Wherever the mic is, please make your way.
So I've come from a tech headhunting background, and now I've gone into a web agency, consultancy, startup, or kind of amalgam into identity crisis at that place for sure. So having come from that background and see what incentivizes software engineers, especially full stack devs, into companies, and now seeing it from my point of view within a company trying to attract talent again, I just wanted to ask, what are you guys doing? I know Nafisa, you said you're looking to bring on the dev. I don't know about on your side as well. But what are you doing to incentivize software engineers to join you? And that equally ties into my second question, which is, I speak to a lot of tech founders almost every day now who have an idea about how they're going to go about building their product. What are you doing, or what are you thinking about how you're going to go about building your technical product? I guess that's
So with hiring, because we're a small team, essentially we're looking for someone who really wants to be able to make an impact in the company that they're in. So that for a lot of engineers is a selling point, that they're able to come in and not just be a cog in a big company, but actually fundamentally change the direction of the company. And we're trying to be able to help them with that as well by providing them a network of mentors and being able to talk to other product owners and CTOs and things like that. So they come in this company and come out the other end becoming a better developer, a better product owner, and just a better sort of startup person. So that a person who actually maybe wants to start their own thing in the future, they really love the role that we're putting out there. And that was it advice to non-tech? What's the second question?
being a non-tech founder, have you thought about how you're going to go about building your tech platform?
Yeah, again, for that, we've been speaking to people and saying, hey, this is kind of what we want to roughly build, what's the advice you would give, and just getting advice from a really hardcore technical perspective, and then matching that to a business goal and seeing where we can meet in the middle, or how we could build it in an easy way. Does it need to be built through code? How can we achieve what we want to do?
So for us, we're not hiring a tech person at the moment, but in terms of just incentivizing in general, it's something that's been on my mind for the last few months, because we had our first annual review, just as in having an employee, and it was really interesting because we changed things around. I think that people are looking for jobs with meaning these days. It seems to be, it's not just about like picking up a salary or something like that. So for us, I know that our marketing person's got 20% of time for training to learn stuff, because the thing is, the more that they learn, the more that you have expertise in the organization. And part of that is really, I want to make sure that the people who work with us, that they're all better than I am. So you all need to know stuff that I don't know, so you can tell me stuff. And so I think that's a good thing, and it's something that I think is maybe incentivizing. I don't know. I don't know if that would work for a dev, but who knows. And the second question around how we're building stuff, we've kind of already skipped that bit. We've already done that. We've decided what languages we're building in and what sort of process we have, and it's kind of already done, I suppose. I suppose when we come up with a new product or a new app or something like that, perhaps we'll look at it again, but we've kind of already decided how we're building things and they're already going. That answers that question.
Cool. One last question, because the pizza's going cold.
So I won't keep you too long with your pizzas. Assalamu alaikum, and I want to say well done to Zohra and Nafisa for coming forward and speaking, because it's not often we see women in startups, but especially in tech. So well done for coming forward For example, do you get a conversation and people talk to you about, are you going to settle down, when you're settling down, if you're already settled, when you're going to have children, or if you're a really demanding husband, etc., etc. How have you had to deal with that, or how have you dealt with that alongside running a new startup?
Wow.
Sorry to get personal.
So I think with Selena, obviously she took maternity leave, like you even get that in startups, and we had investors and people, they wanted to bluntly kind of say, oh, so when's she coming back? But they knew that they'd look a bit arsey if they did. So they'd just be like, oh, how's Selena? How's it going? Sort of thing. And I'd just say, look, she's going to come back when she's ready. But at the same time, I think if you're dealing with the right people, the right mentors, advisors, whatever it is, and they're being a bit weird about things like family and commitments and things like that, they're just not people you want to deal with. Being a woman in tech and all of that, I think everyone has instances where someone's just been a bit of an idiot towards you. One instance we had was I was speaking to some investors, I brought along an advisor, and the whole meeting, the two investors who were guys were just talking to the advisor, not to me. Followed up conversation with the advisor and things like that. But I think I can't say they're massive barriers is being a woman in tech and stuff. They're just kind of things you got to brush off every now and then. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I haven't felt particularly disadvantaged or anything, I suppose. I don't know if it's just because I'm not looking to feel disadvantaged or if I'm ignoring it. I'm not really sure, I suppose. I'm sure it's different to other people's experiences, but from my point of view, it's never been a thing, mostly because I just don't think about it, I suppose. I don't kind of think, oh, well, I don't know, I just don't think about it. I don't even know what to give you as an example because I don't think about it that much. So I haven't really felt disadvantaged. There was that story I told you about the man who was talking to me at the festival and asking for the brother who's in charge and that sort of thing. But having said that, so I just facilitated the Global Islamic Economy Summit, GIES, roundtable on halal food last month, and it was really funny because they get a bunch of people in the halal industry. Is anyone here from the halal food industry? I'm just about to bitch about them. So the halal food industry is basically a whole bunch of old uncles who like the sound of their own voice and just like to talk. Mostly, about 90%, that's who they are. And they asked if I would facilitate this thing, and I thought, oh yeah, sure, I'll facilitate. I used to be a high school teacher, so I can facilitate stuff. So I said, yeah, I'll facilitate this thing. And they were all really, really super, uber grateful for it. And I thought, I'm just facilitating. I think it's really not a big deal. But I facilitated it, and I facilitated in a very, very strong style. So there was no one who was going to speak about a subject we weren't going to talk about, cut uncles off left, right, and centre. It was absolutely fine. But the thing that I heard afterwards is that the organisers couldn't find anyone to facilitate because nobody wanted to do that job. I was just naive and had no idea that it would be that hard, I suppose. And they said that they were really, really surprised, and that's why they kept saying they were so grateful, because they thought, well, a woman wouldn't be able to handle a room like that. But I handled that room. So I suppose the thing is, maybe some people had some misconceptions or preconceptions, but I did it, and it was fine. So I guess if I was looking for that barrier, maybe I would have seen it. I don't know if that answers your question.
There's a blog post I wrote, I think about a year and a half ago, and it's called Distort Your Reality. And it was like this mindset shift that I had that was, if I box myself in as female, ethnic minority, went to a state school and the rest of the list, I'm instantly, every time I walk into a room, going to have that on my shoulder, and that's what I'm going to kind of put out there. But if I walk into a room and I say, actually, I'm as good as anyone else founding a team, you're going to literally resonate that sort of aura, I guess, if you speak. And, when you speak to someone, if you feel you are competent and you're not boxing yourself in, you will come across competent. So I think a lot of it is about realising that actually they're not barriers, they're just things that, if anything, when you go to a networking event, they're going to recognise you and remember your face amongst the sea of all the white people. So, you just got to work it to your advantage, So, yeah, it comes with a lot of pros, and I think one thing we always do is we talk about the disadvantages of being brown and a woman and all of these things, but it comes with loads of advantages, so, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming. It's been really, really insightful, really, really interesting. We'll clap. And yeah, time for some food.